Hello everyone, welcome back to Naan Bhai. This is me Ankita and today I'm going to share with you a recipe for butterscotch cake. Now the butterscotch cake that we're going to make today does have a lot of elements to it. That is, there's a cake, we're going to make praline, some buttercream and some butterscotch sauce. So this cake does have a lot of elements. I'm going to try and go step by step and simplify it as much as I can so we can all do this together. So talking a little bit about the cake, how am I getting the butterscotch flavor in this one? I'm using butterscotch chips, which I'm going to melt and add it to the cake batter. I'm melting this with a little bit of milk. So the cake recipe is, again, it's pretty similar to the other cakes. That is, I'm going to start by creaming the butter and the two sugars. That is, I'm using light brown sugar here as well. So I'm going to cream the butter and the two sugars together, followed by the egg, then add the melted chocolate chips, and then the sifted dry ingredients and the buttermilk alternating. So the next step would be preheat your oven to a 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a 180 degrees Celsius. And I have greased these two 6-inch cake pans. I've buttered and floured them this time. There is no parchment in the bottom. So without any further delay, let's take a look at what we're going to need for the cake. I'm adding the butter first, brown sugar, white sugar, and I'm going to beat this till it's light and fluffy, which is going to take about 5 to 7 minutes. In the meantime, I will melt the chocolate chips and milk together in the microwave. 30 seconds, stir, and then 30 seconds. I will not keep it for 1 or 2 minutes. It's going to burn and the chocolate will kind of become clumpy. So while this is getting fluffy, I'm going to go and melt the chocolate. the batter is ready to go in the cake pan, and it's looking gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to divide it in my 2 cake pans. So I'm going to pour the batter in these cake pans. I'm measuring the cake batter this time because I want the cakes to be the exact same height. You can eyeball it, but because I'm making this cake for somebody, so I want it to be perfect. So I'm measuring how much I'm pouring into each pan. So I poured 500 grams of batter in each pan, and I'm going to start with 30 minutes on this, and then let's see how long it takes. So while the cakes are baking in the oven, we can prepare our praline in the meantime. So praline is basically caramelized sugar with nuts folded in it, and then you spread it on a surface, and then once it's cool, you break it into pieces or make it into a powder, anything that you want. So talking a little bit about a caramel, so there are 2 kinds of caramel: dry caramel and wet caramel. So dry caramel is where we caramelize the sugar directly without any water in it, and wet caramel is where we add a little bit of water to make it look like sand, and then we start cooking it. Wet caramel does take longer to cook, dry caramel is quicker, but with dry caramel there are more chances to burn it, so I'm going to give you a really nice tip for this one. So how not to burn your caramel and how to get a nice smooth one. So a lot of times what we do is we dump the whole sugar in our pot and we try to caramelize it. So what that does is it sticks to the side of the pan. There are big lumps which take really long to melt, and then it's not a uniform caramel, right? So what I like to do is add the sugar little by little. That is, I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, just enough to cover the surface of this pan, and let it melt completely. Not going to stir it, not going to touch it. And once that's melted and it starts to change color, then I'll add a little more sugar and then a little more sugar, basically little sugar at a time. And that's how I'm going to caramelize it. You'll see how neat and how pretty that looks, and it happens very quickly. So it just gives a very good end result. So once the caramel is ready, I'm going to add the butter. So turn the heat off, then add the cubed butter and mix it in, and then fold these nuts in the end. I'm using chopped cashew nuts here. Depending on what is your requirement, you can use whole nuts, crushed nuts, sliced nuts, anything. So I'm using these chopped cashew nuts, and once the praline is ready, the mixture is ready, I'm going to spread it on a silpat. Now if you don't have a silpat, you can spread it directly on your slab or on a plate, anything, even parchment is fine. So I'm going to use a silpat and spread it as much as I can, because it does cool really, really quickly. And then once it's completely cool and crisp, I'm going to crush it, and then we'll use it in our cake. So let's take a look at what we're going to need for praline. So I have my pot and the heat is medium high. Caramel should never be cooked on low heat or medium heat. It should always either be high or medium high. I'm going to use medium high here, and then I'm going to add the sugar little by little. Caramel is very much like a teenager. The less you try to mess with them, the happier they are. So just let it sit and let it melt on its own. I'm not going to stir it, I'm not going to do anything. And once this one is melted, then I'll add some more sugar to it. So this is smooth, all the sugar is melted in, and I'm going to switch the heat off and add my butter while whisking it continuously. The butter is nicely mixed in, and at this stage I'm going to add the nuts and mix it in. So that looks good, and before it starts to solidify, I'm going to pour this on my silpat and then flatten it up. So the praline is set. It's nice and firm, like it has a snap. Like when I pick it up and I try to break it, there, the snap. So I'm going to break this into smaller pieces now and then put it in this bag and crush it a little bit with a rolling pin. So I'm not looking for a fine powder. I just want like, let's say this sized pieces, because I want that bite to it, the crunch in the cake. You know how when you're eating a butterscotch ice cream, you bite into the caramelized nut and it's so yummy. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll break this, and by the time I'm done with this, hopefully the cakes should be out of the oven. Like that, this is what I'm looking for. Let's say these sized pieces, and I'm going to crush all of this and then take it out in a bowl, and then we'll check our cakes. So these took about 45 minutes in the oven, and just took them out. They're really hot, so I'm going to let it cool before I take it out. So this is what the cake looks like, and I'm going to let it cool down completely before I take it out of the pan. And then once they're out of the pan, I will put them in the fridge for about 30 minutes, and then I'll slice my cakes. So while the cakes are cooling down, we're going to prepare a butterscotch sauce. So for the butterscotch sauce, I'm using light brown sugar. If you don't have light brown sugar, you can use granulated white sugar. That's completely okay. And I'm also using alcohol in my sauce because, I just think it tastes much better. You don't have to add it. It's not. It's optional. So I'm using some whiskey here. I'm going to add that right at the end. And so how do we make this sauce? So all the ingredients, I have this heavy bottom pan which has a little bit of height to it. So I'm going to melt the butter first, then add the sugar, cream and salt. Now salt, I'm using sea salt here. If you don't have sea salt, you can just use regular salt. That's also completely okay. So melt the butter first, then add the sugar, cream and salt, and bring it to a boil. Cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes after it has started to boil, and scrape your bowl. Obviously you don't want it to stick around. And then take it off the heat, add the vanilla and the alcohol, and mix it in. And let it cool down, and this delicious sauce is ready to use. So let's go there and make our sauce. The reason we add vanilla and whiskey right at the end, or any alcohol, is because if you're going to add the alcohol and then cook, the vanilla and the alcohol will evaporate and it won't really leave a lot of flavor in. So we add it right at the end so the flavor stays in. Butterscotch sauce is ready. I'm going to take it out in a bowl and let it cool down. So the butterscotch sauce is ready. It is a little runny right now, of course, because we just made it. It's really hot. I'm going to pour it in this bowl and then cover it with plastic, touching the surface of the sauce. Why? Because we don't want a skin to form. So anything that you prepare which has, let's say, milk, cream, butter, and you want it to cool down, always cover it with the plastic where this plastic is touching the surface of that thing, because then the skin won't form. When the skin is not good, you know, it kind of, when you stir it back, it gets in the sauce or anything that you're making. So I'm going to wrap it up with plastic and wait for it to cool down, and let's see if our cakes are cool enough, and then we can start decorating. So we have the praline, we have our sauce. So by the time the sauce was done, my cakes had cooled down. So I did take the top off the cake to level it up, and then I put them back in the refrigerator because I wanted the sauce to cool down a little bit. So now everything is at the temperature that we need. That is, the buttercream is nice and spreadable and the sauce is nice and cool. The praline is set and crushed. The cakes are nice and cool. So now we're going to start decorating our cakes. Now the cake's crumb coated, and I'm going to leave it in the freezer for about 15 minutes and then mask the cake and decorate it. So it's been in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and now I'm going to put a thicker layer of buttercream and then decorate it. I might use, so I put the sauce in a little bottle here, so maybe I'll try to use the sauce in decoration and some of these nuts. So let me first put the buttercream and then we'll decorate the cake. So I'm using this closed star tip to decorate the cake. I'm just going to make a little design on top and decorate on the sides with a few nuts, and then we'll finish up our cake. I have some store-bought butterscotch candy here that I'm just going to decorate on the top, and yeah, I think the cake looks done. So I'm just going to put this on the top and then we're finished, I promise. So that's it for a butterscotch cake. It's ready to slice and eat. I know this cake does have a lot of steps to it, so you don't have to make everything. The butterscotch cake in itself is pretty self-sufficient. It's very nice, delicious, moist cake. You could just eat the cake with the butterscotch sauce or ice cream or a dollop of whipped cream. So, but if you do wish to assemble a cake like this for a special occasion, so try this one out, or just make the butterscotch cake and eat it as it is. It's yummy. It's really yummy. So that's it. Try the recipe out and let me know how that goes. Thank you very much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed the video.